Thank you, and good morning. I feel the pool is a very hard act to follow, so I'll try and do my best. And I was also just, if I heard this right, given an extra 5 minutes, so I won't run over that much, because I do tend to go into detail a bit too much for my liking sometimes. Right, so what I'll talk to you about is the young consumer. And the definition of young in itself is a bit of an issue, because within Viacom, as you probably all know, that includes Nickelodeon, MTV, Comedy Central, Paramount Channel, all the way up to Channel 5 in the UK. Young for us is different than young for a lot of other people, because young to us means kids. For the purpose of this conversation and for the purpose of all of the facts and figures you'll see here, we're talking about consumers up to the age of 34. So that's really a big chunk of the audience that we're looking at, but it still is young in the grand scheme of things. And what I'll talk to you about is TV redefined, and how the consumer is redefining what television means to them, and how we as an industry really need to follow that and need to get our heads around what television is and how we talk about these things. One of the ways that I went into this project was that we have all of these beautiful terms, from linear TV to OTT and DTO and everything that is very, very technical. While to the consumer, it really is all television. And that was brought home when we were in home with a family of a mother and a 3-year-old girl. And the girl was sitting on the sofa watching something on Netflix on an iPad. And mom turned around and said, "Switch off the TV." And that's really how the consumer language is evolving around this. And as an industry, we kind of have to catch up with that. So that's what TV Redefined is all about, and that's what we're seeing in the young audiences. Right, so now let's hope this clicker works. There we go. So television used to be one source, one device. It was a very simple thing. When somebody said, "I'm watching TV," you knew exactly what that looked like. Today, that is not the case anymore. It's multiple devices, multiple sources, but that isn't all that's happened. Innovation within television hasn't been limited to just devices and sources. Really, the biggest part of innovation has happened in content itself. Television used to be very formulaic, used to fit within a rigid schedule from a scheduling linear perspective, but also TV programs were incredibly formulaic within themselves. And that's not the case anymore. The picture on the right is from a program called Top of the Lake, which was a very innovative way of looking at television and literally breaking every rule that could possibly exist within how to make a TV show. The episodes aren't even the same length. So it goes down to that level of detail. The most important innovation that we've seen really is around the content. And we've seen that television has become much more open and accepting to influences from all over everywhere else. We see that represented by cinematic dramas that are now living on television more so than anywhere else, really. If you want to, you can even say TV really is the new cinema, because the movies and the made-for-TV events and the dramatic series are better on TV than they ever are on the movies. But we also have the other influence from the online world, and that's exemplified here with Drunk History, which originally started out as a short or a series of shorts on Funny or Die. Comedy Central then made it into a TV show in the US, worked really well. We then made it into a TV show in the UK, and it's working really well there as well. So the influence comes from both sides of the spectrum. And then in the middle, what we have is a picture from Every Which Way, which is a kids' telenovela that originally came out of Latin America. And that really exemplifies the fact that formats and content is traveling across borders so much more easily than it ever has. And not just finished content, but formats and just ideas. And we're seeing a resurgence in how content travels and how that works. So television also used to talk at the viewer. It was very much a one-way conversation, and that isn't the case anymore either. The picture we have here to represent that is Veronica Mars, which some of you might know was a TV show from Warner Brothers that had 2 seasons and was loved by fans and then got canceled, because TV shows tend to get canceled eventually. What happened a number of years later is that those fans that were still very much into that show got together, got on Kickstarter, and funded a movie that hit the cinema that Warner Brothers eventually made. So it now is a two-way conversation. The audience is expecting to be heard. And we have to think about that, and we have to keep that in mind, because we can no longer just talk at people, let alone down to people. Within all of this, people have predicted that this is the end of television. And part of the reason why we did this work is we wanted to understand, well, what's the truth? Where are we, and what's the real result out here? Well, surprise, surprise, that is not the case. But what has happened, or is happening, or has to happen, is that we really need to redefine our understanding of what television is and what it means. Viewers have already done that. They are redefining what television means to them. And as an industry, we just have to follow that. But what we're seeing is that as part of that redefinition of the consumer perspective, television is more essential than it's ever been. It's better than it's ever been, and people tell us this. There's also a lot more television than there's ever been, and it's hard to catch up, and you see some of these facts and some of the quotes. But really, TV has become the social currency. It's part of the social fabric. You go a number of years back, and you look at how people talked about TV. The cultural conversation that used to be taken up by movies and music is now TV. Who's been to a dinner party lately where the subject of a TV show, any one of them, did not come up? It doesn't happen anymore. And TV really is, it's not highbrow, it's not lowbrow, it's no-brow. Everybody's talking about this stuff. And that, again, makes us part of the cultural fabric, us as an industry. So the redefinition about TV is about expanding meaning. It's not about replacing something. It's not about contracting or contradicting what TV is. It's simply about embracing all of the other parts, all of the annexes to the traditional linear TV environment as part of what television is. And that then allows us to redefine that relationship with the viewer, which is what we believe we need to do. It's no surprise, and you've heard and seen some of this already, viewers absolutely do have increased access. And I could talk about this slide for an hour on its own, because we did this across 14 countries and started comparing those. But essentially, people have more devices, and people have more sources. One of the interesting side notes on this is that we found is that just devices do not increase consumption. It's the sources that increase consumption. Because just because you have another screen doesn't give you any more to watch. If you have various different pipes and sources of content, that allows you to engage more with content and then watch more. And the other thing, and as another side note, is that we deliberately went to parts of the developing world, or however you define that, not just Western Europe, essentially. And those numbers of devices and sources do not vary drastically. As soon as somebody reaches the internet, we didn't talk about people who are not online, because they're very unlikely to watch something on Netflix. But as soon as somebody is online, the variation between number of devices and number of sources is not great anymore. And that in itself is quite a revelation. So which devices and which sources are being used obviously varies by country, but the number themselves do not. Right, so they have more access. But increased access only leads to heightened engagement if they have access to good stuff. And that's where we switched up the formula. Normally we've heard it reported that, more access, more devices, whatever it is, means more engagement. That is only true if what we give them is something that they want. And with television being better than it's ever been, that equation is nicely fulfilled. So we have more access, we have the perception that content is good, and that leads to heightened engagement. With all of this, we have to remember that linear TV still absolutely dominates viewing. And while this may already be a low number for some of you, we deliberately split out VOD, as in operator-provided catch-up VOD, from linear TV. So that sits in that 18% on the right. And that is actually a quarter of that number. So linear TV, in the past 24 hours as part of this, still very much dominates. But of course, people are starting to mix things up. Despite that, most of the viewing journeys are still starting with linear TV. That's where I go first. And then if I don't see something, then something I want to watch, then I go and explore beyond that. And I've got quotes throughout this presentation. As I already mentioned, I think, we went to 14 countries, and we filmed a bunch of people as well. So I'll play a video at the end that brings some of this stuff to life. Linear TV today is still the only medium that can deliver on two very specific needs. There is an active and there is a passive need. Linear TV is the only one that can deliver on the passive need. If you come home from work or school or whatever it is and you want to just watch something, pressing one button, and it has to be simple, pressing one button and something starts playing. That is what delivers that passive need. If I have to go in somewhere and then select something, that is an active choice. I don't necessarily want to do that. And then pressing the up or down button on my remote and surfing through channels, that is about as much as I can still expect my thumb to do at that end of the day. But I need stuff to start happening. And that clearly is something that, for now, TV is the only thing that does, or linear TV. On the other hand, of course, there is that very active and social moment around event television. And that, of course, lives on sports, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about that later today. But not just sports. This is also award shows and competition shows, even like The Voice or Idol or those types of things, but also very good scripted appointment TV. When Game of Thrones airs, there's a very significant portion of the population who want to watch that live because they don't want to miss out on the conversation after that. And while Game of Thrones is not the thing for everyone, everybody has their own version of that. And again, as a quick side note, is nobody watches crap on TV anymore. Now, what I define as crap and what you define as crap is probably different, but you do not have to watch that. You have more than 3 options at the time. You can always watch something that you think is good. And that also delivers on some of that active participation within linear TV. But linear TV clearly doesn't solve all of our needs, and that's not surprising. So I apologize for this eye chart here, but what we looked at is some of the individual pieces that drive or deliver our TV experience. And by far at the very top of this, linear TV is still the go-to source. That's where viewing journeys start. That's where I go first, and it's also my default position, even within a younger audience set. Within kids, there's a slight exception to that, but still, as we heard earlier, the TV set is king of screens. So that is where I want to watch it, and linear TV is the easiest way to watch something on that screen. Then there's catch-up, and we've got 3 sources in there, DVR, VOD, and then channel sites and apps. All of those are currently equal. None of them has one over the other yet, and there's everything to play for in that space. Those are very much there to catch up. Now, again, that is driven by linear TV. I don't know what I want to catch up on if it wasn't on TV first. So again, there's an incredible opportunity here in the pay TV environment to start exploring and innovating around that space. Then subscription VOD seems to be largely for marathoning or binging. And there's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy here because Netflix obviously plays a large part in this, and they have set themselves up as a marathoning/binging business. So there's a bit of consumer, virtuous circle or vicious circle, I don't know how you want to look at it. But that's what SVOD is seen to do. Slight difference, by the way, between the international market and the US market. In the US market, because there are different SVOD services like Hulu Plus that offer other things, catch-up is playing much more of a role in there as well, because it's not just library content. Then free video sites, something like YouTube, are worth a look. That's part of our discovery process. That's where I go and find things if I'm searching for them actively. But if I like what I see, I try and bring it back to one of the higher quality experiences and to one of the higher quality screens. And I don't know how many of you have ever tried to watch YouTube on a TV set and find something. It is, from a user experience point of view, an absolute nightmare. So it's not surprising that people try and bring it back to the services that they prefer. Direct-to-own or electronic sell-through, so the iTunes of this world, that's an occasional treat, and that kind of speaks for itself. And then the other thing that we found was that, quite interestingly, we used torrents as a synonym for piracy, and that is the last resort. So, and I was talking to somebody about this at dinner last night. If we provide alternatives in better quality, in better UX, in various other ways, then there will not be that massive drain on all of our content. The other external factor that influences this in some countries is censorship as well. If I know as a consumer that the version that I see on TV is not the real version, then that drives me into alternative sources as well. Because as we all know, we live in a global village today, and everybody knows what's happening everywhere else, and I want to watch it, A, day and date, but also I want to watch the full version. And those are other areas that drive down there. So that's kind of our summary as to the various sources. And just before I play the video, one last point. TV everywhere, which is become an accepted term within the industry, from a consumer's perspective, really should be called TV anytime or TV right now, because it is not about the where, it is about the when that really drives the consumer desire. And there's two aspects to this. One is that even if it works on my iPad, if it buffers or the user experience is not good, then it does not deliver on the when. And the other thing is that, of course, the language that we use with consumers in our external marketing or whatever it is, we really need to rethink, because it isn't about the where, it's about the when, largely. And then the how, which is the device, and then the where, which is the location. So really, we're talking a different language than the consumer need. And that in itself is also quite an interesting way to think about it. And with that, I'm going to play a quick video now that says all of this. You'll have to read subtitles for some of the clips, and hopefully they'll express what I just said just much better than me. Okay. There we go.
Es gibt mehr Fernsehen. Also früher hatte man irgendwie ein paar Sender und hat dann das geschaut, was lief. Und mittlerweile gibt es ja alles.
Also ich bin ja halt mit dem Fernseher aufgewachsen und ich finde, die Qualität von den Programmen hat sich echt in den Jahren sehr verändert und ist auch sehr besser geworden.
The shows that are coming out, the production value is really high.
Also dadurch, dass die Serien heutzutage viel besser sind als früher, gucke ich halt viel mehr. Ich bin eine Forscherin, was das heißt, neue Serien zu finden und auch alte, wenn Freundinnen oder so mit mir darüber reden. Wenn ich nur den Namen davon höre, gehe ich direkt in Google rein und forsche oder recherchiere so weit, bis ich die gefunden habe und schaue sie mir dann an, und wenn es mir dann gefällt, bleibe ich dabei.
Word of mouth is really strong indication of what kind of shows you can watch. Your buddies, they know what shows can make you happy.
A friend of mine, she was telling me, she's like, you gotta watch it. And she was tweeting and Facebooking about it non-stop. So after a while I was like, God, it must be good if she's going on about it for this length of time. Like, let me see what it is.
Isso assim, o processo principal é na chamada. Eu tô assistindo uma tô assistindo uma série, tô assistindo o Big Bang, tá passando passar uma chamada de um seriado novo. Você, eu acho que eu gostei desse. Vamos ver se...
Classic example, In-Betweeners. I heard about it, I read about it, and from there watched episode 1 and fell in love with it and think it's amazing now.
Antes de tudo eu vim pra TV.
Flick through the TV guide or go to certain channels and just look to see what's on.
I'll come home from, my morning shift and I'll get breakfast ready and a cup of tea, and I'll sit down and I'll press play and I'll sit down, drinking my cup of tea and my food, watching my show.
If it's live, then you need to catch it up live, then it's my moment. No one can watch TV than me.
There are a lot of strategy that I use, especially with online. If I'm into the show that I want to watch as early as I can.
Lembro, se eu sei que eu não vou conseguir assistir e eu estiver aqui, aí eu gravo. Aí meu amigo sempre grava. Aí eu vou, peço prestado.
There's series like The Only Way is Essex. My daughter and I watch, so we If we could, we'll sit and watch them on a Monday night, but because there's always something going on, we tape them and then watch them whenever we can.
You know, official websites, sometimes it says this shows is not available in your countries and stuff like that, you know. It's kind of, you know, upsetting, but then I find another way to get it anyway.
Ich schaue das wirklich gerne mit meinem Surround-System in HD auf meinem Fernseher und nicht irgendwo auf einem kleinen Bildschirm.
My favourite shows I would probably rather watch on the big TV in the lounge because it makes it more special.
If there's like something on and let's say like someone else wants to watch something on that, then I'll just watch it on here.
With iPads, you've got more control. We can say, okay, we'll watch while we're going to grandma's in the car.
Aber natürlich ist Fernsehen das Medium.
Ich finde schon, dass ich ein Glückspilz bin, weil heutzutage gibt es so viele Kanäle.
WhatsApp é uma coisa que todo mundo tem, todo mundo fala constante. Daí a gente tira foto, daí tipo, eu tô assistindo Vampire Diaries, daí a outra já manda, eu também tô, a outra fala, tô assistindo a Nick agora não dá, agora eu tô assistindo House, é tipo...
Also alle schauen fern, alle schauen die gleichen Serien, alle sprechen darüber, wenn Game of Thrones läuft, sprechen alle über Game of Thrones. Das ist das Thema.
We watch more TV than ever.
Ich habe früher schon viel zu viel Fernsehen geschaut, wenn ich meine Eltern so höre. Aber es ist mittlerweile noch mehr geworden, weil es einfach noch ein größeres Angebot gibt. Es gibt noch mehr Serien, die ganzen amerikanischen Serien sind jetzt verfügbar. Und deswegen schaue ich doch mehr und vor allem viel länger, viel mehr am Stück.
A TV é tudo pra mim, na verdade, porque a TV é meu objeto preferido.
Meu hobby mais ou menos é assistir televisão, eu sou um cara viciado em seriados.
We like our shows and we watch religiously.
It's my favourite thing. It's kind of embarrassing.
Man kann gar nicht mehr aufhören.
And that's it for me, so thank you very much. I'm going back over.